Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate you taking the time to come to our LearnUp speaker series. Moving on, we did want to share that we'll be having another LearnUp event coming up next week, next Wednesday, February 11th at 4 p.m., which hopefully will be a bit easier for all of you joining us from the East Coast. And this will be a general LearnUp virtual open house, so it'll share a bit more about our LearnUp program. Today's agenda is focused on resources for all of us educators and for parents as well. All right, so for today's agenda, I would like to introduce Julia Shayto and her presentation about what an analysis of 30,000 words tells us about how to teach reading. Julia is the creator of Phonics and Stuff, which is an online resource for teaching reading through phonics and morphology. She currently works as a reading and math interventionist in a public elementary school, and she works directly with beginning and struggling readers. She draws from a diverse background as a Montessori teacher and homeschool parent. And Julia began this site that she's going to share with us today as a passion project to build the tools that she needed. And today she shares all of these free as a customizable resource for educators worldwide. So we're really excited to share these with you. All right, so let's see. Julia, we're going to let you jump into screen sharing now.
Okay. Okay. There we go. That look good? All right. Thanks so much for that introduction. I really appreciate LearnUp Centers for inviting me to give this talk tonight. My topic for the evening is what an analysis of 30,000 words tells us about how to teach reading. So I used to work at a couple of different Montessori schools, one before my kids were born and one when my oldest was little. I also homeschooled our kids. As I was homeschooling, I looked at a lot of different curriculums for the different subject areas, some good, some awful, and some that just didn't really work for my kids. And I really sympathize with classroom teachers who get saddled with a bad curriculum. If, as a homeschooler, I get a curriculum that turns out to be bad, I'll stop using it the next day and try something else. And as Tara mentioned, I'm also a part-time reading and math interventionist at a public elementary school. I started there in late 2021. It was a couple of months after the schools in our area went back to in-person learning during COVID. I've worked with kids one-on-one in small groups from every grade there, K through 6. And the reason we're here today, I'm the creator of Phonics and Stuff. Here's the web address if you'd like to open the website in another tab and try out some of the tools there as I'm talking about them. So Phonics and Stuff is a website with resources for parents and teachers or anyone else who's helping a child learn how to read. About 90% of what we make, we put out for free, and there are worksheet generators and some other fun extras for our members. We are literally a mom and pop shop. Everything on here is made by my husband and I, with the voice talent for the audio provided by our kids. Today, I'd like to talk about the behind-the-scenes work I've done of analyzing words by their sounds and spellings. I've broken down more than 33,000 words this way and put them into a database, which is what makes all the customization in our tools and games possible. This customization means that it doesn't matter what reading program you're following. You can use our tools to build lessons, and your students can use our games to reinforce their skills. Because I know there are a lot of different programs out there. In fact, this all started with a question I had while I was teaching my own kids to read when they were little. I was familiar with quite a few different phonics programs, and there was tons that I liked. But one of the many things I noticed was that it seemed like every one of them had a different order in which they introduced the letters and sounds. Along with the introduction of each new letter would be a collection of words that you could now sound out and spell. There would be games and activities and decodable sentences to go along with their specific progression. But the programs couldn't really be combined or mixed because nothing matched up. I couldn't easily take an activity I liked from one of them and use it if I was following the progression of one of the other ones. To do something like that, I'd have to think through all the letter sounds that had been taught, and then try to come up with a matching list of words every single time. And if I took on a new tutoring student who already knew some letter sounds when they came in, I had to either start at the beginning of a program, even though I knew they weren't starting from zero, or I would try to find the closest place in the curriculum that matched up with what they knew and try to backfill whatever gaps they had. And another thing I was curious about was, with all these different progressions, was there one that was better than the others? I mean, these were all very good programs that I was looking at, and they were clearly trying to do their best to introduce letters in an order that they thought would be the best to allow students to start working with words as soon as possible. So there was a tool I wanted that didn't seem to exist anywhere. I wanted to be able to select all the letter sounds my child knew and get back a list of all the words that they should be able to sound out or spell. There are lots of online tools that let you put in a list of letters, and then they give you all the words that can be made with those letters. These are the kind of tools that people use to help them look for high-scoring words when they're playing words with friends, or to help when they get stuck playing Wordle. But the problem was that if you put in the letters, let's say A, C, H, and T, you would get back words like chat or that. And this wasn't helpful for me for what I was doing because I hadn't taught the CH for the ch sound yet, or the TH for the sound th. And there's nothing about learning the k for the letter C and the h for the letter H that allows you to sound out words with CH for ch. I needed something that with those letters would give me just at, hat, and cat. So I decided to build the tool I needed myself using a spreadsheet, because my general philosophy in life is that anything that can go in a spreadsheet should go in a spreadsheet. So I made a list of all the short decodable words I could think of, and I broke up each word into its individual sounds. At the beginning, this mostly meant putting in one letter per cell, but pretty soon I was also listing words with double consonants like add and will, and just categorizing the double letter as an alternate way to spell that basic sound. Then I started adding words with consonant digraphs like TH or SH, and after that, there didn't seem to be a clear place to stop, so I just kept going. I kept collecting all the words, and it was really interesting to see all the different patterns that emerged. One issue I ran into, though, that there are quite a few different spellings in English that can represent different sounds. For example, the spelling CH can refer to the sound ch, as in the words chip or much, or it can stand for the sound k, like in chord or echo, or the CH can stand for sh, as in chef or machine. The way I dealt with this was to give each of the different intersections of sound and spelling its own unique identifier. The first instance I found of a spelling representing a sound would just be the letter or letters themselves. Any new instance of that spelling being used to represent a sound after it would have a number added with it. In this case, it meant I could search for just the words with CH spelling the ch sound, and my search wouldn't give me these other ones unless I specifically asked for them. These specific intersections of sounds and words with spellings are referred to by word nerds like me as grapheme-phoneme correspondences. Graphemes are the letter or letters used to represent a single sound. Phonemes are those individual speech sounds, and correspondences are when you match those up. As you saw before, this is relevant for understanding the idea that one spelling can be used to represent more than one sound. But the reverse case is also true. One sound can be represented by several spellings. In fact, almost every single sound or phoneme in English can be spelled more than one way. For example, the sound k can be spelled with the letter C, or with the letter K, or with CK, or as we saw before, with CH. And there are actually several more ways to spell the sound k, but these four are the most common. Anyway, to keep track of this, I had another place in the spreadsheet where I listed the sound that went with each grapheme-phoneme correspondence. And this let me tie all those different spellings for the sound together so that I could count up how many words were being used for each phoneme-grapheme correspondence and how many there were total. But we'll talk more about that analysis later. All right. Now I want to tell you how this all moved from my computer to yours. Having all of this in a spreadsheet was fine for me to use with my own children, my tutoring students. I'd made a little interface that let me search for the words the way I wanted, but I figured that I couldn't be the only one who would find a tool like this to be useful. So my husband's a computer guy, and I'd been bugging him for a while to help me with putting out a version of this online. But he was always too busy. But then came March of 2020. And we all remember the beginning of COVID. People were learning to do yoga and learning to knit. I baked exactly 1 loaf of homemade bread. It was fine. But what I really wanted to do was work on my gigantic spreadsheet. Meanwhile, my husband, the computer nerd, spent the first week of lockdown playing video games for about 16 hours a day. By day 8, he finally got bored. He looked at me and said, hey, wasn't there some tool or something you always wanted me to build for you? Yes, there is. And I showed him the giant spreadsheet and said, I need this to be a website where other teachers can actually use it. So we spent the rest of lockdown building Phonics and Stuff so that my private obsession could become an accessible resource for everyone. So here it is, the tool I wanted but couldn't find, our word list builder. Let me switch to the actual website here. All right, let's say you have a student who, for whatever reason, comes in knowing only the basic letter sounds for F, I, T, S, U, and M. Basic consonants and short vowels. We'll select those here. After clicking on F and I, you can see that we have the word if. And if we add T for T, you can see we have 2 more words, it and fit. And as you can see, the new words that are just added are highlighted in light blue here. When we add S, there's a big jump to 13 words. With U for we get a few more. And then with M for jumps up to 27 words. So by default, these will be sorted in order of frequency with the most common words at the top. But you have some other options. You can sort by the number of letters, the number of syllables, the number of phonemes. You can put them in alphabetical order, and you can also sort it so the new words are at the top, the ones that were just added with whatever you picked last. What I usually like to do when I'm working with my students is to sort by phonemes first, number of phonemes, and then sort by frequency. And this will get me the shortest, most common words at the very top. You can also click this little box here, and it will show you just the new words that were added with the most recent correspondence. So we added M last, so only those that were added last will show. Let's turn that off for now. So what I might do with an intervention student who came in knowing these letter sounds would be to start them off reading and spelling short words that include just those correspondences they already knew to get them used to the activities and the procedures that we do in a lesson. Then I would look at the school's phonics progression, and I would find the earliest thing that the school has in their list that the student doesn't know. So if, for example, the first sound in the school's progression was letter A for A, I would add that next. There we go. But just because your school's reading curriculum might teach that one letter all by itself at the beginning of kindergarten, it doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. You don't have to start all the way back at the beginning with a lesson on just the letter A for the sound A all by itself, just because your student is missing that first one. you can teach the new phoneme-grapheme correspondence in the context of other words with the other letter sounds that your student has already come in knowing. So you have, look at only new with the one you're going to teach first. You have all of these words, though you probably don't want to do the longer ones right away, to start out with. And you can be sounding out and spelling words right away with your student. Now, we're in the basic settings right now. This is going to have all the high utility common grapheme phoneme correspondences. You've got the basic consonants, short vowels, double consonants, consonant digraphs. I put QU over here with the digraphs. Long vowels with a few spellings of each, and then other vowel sounds, ow, oi, and And if there's a correspondence that you're looking for that you don't see in this menu, you can switch to the advanced settings. Here's where it gets wild. You can see that all the things we selected for in basic are already picked here. They're already selected. But in advanced, you have a section for each phoneme, every speech sound. And the spellings are listed in order of from most common to least common. I've got the vowels at the top here, and they're grouped by the short vowel and long vowel for each letter. So we have a. You can click these to hear the sounds.
A.
And then and e, and so on. And then the consonants are down here. These are they're matched up in voiced, unvoiced pairs. What that means is that like b and p, the same thing, the same movement is happening in your mouth, but for one of them, the only difference is that for one of them, your vocal cords are vibrating for b, but they're not vibrating for p. And the same thing is true with g and k. The rest of them in the lower half, they don't have voiced, unvoiced pairs, so I just tried to group them in a way that made sense. Like I put all the nasal sounds together. I put l and r together, and w and y. And at the bottom are the ones that are actually a combination of two sounds kind of mushed together, like the X sound, x, and QU, qu, and a couple other odd ones that come up now and then. So I'm going to hit reset for now. Go back to advanced to show you another fun thing you can do. If you go to mode 2, it's going to act a little different. Instead of a search for all the words that can be made using only a certain set of letters, we can pick a single item and see all the words that use that correspondence. For instance, let's go to the short I section, I, right here, and ask for all the words with I spelled with the letter Y. There we go. You can see we have 244 words that all have I spelled with the letter Y. Using the tool this way can be really handy if you run across what seems like a really weird spelling of a sound and you'd like to know if it comes up in other words. So if you have a student who's wondering about the letter S spelling the sound Z, like in the word is, you can go down to the Z section. There we go.
Z.
And click the letter S. And here we go. You can see it's not just a weird one-off thing. There are over 6,000 words that have the Z spelled with the letter S. And if you'd like to see a more detailed explanation of the different modes, you can go to the help up here, and there's some short tutorials that can tell you more about how to use that. All right. So finally had the right tool to handle my original problem. Whatever letter sounds a student knows, I can quickly get a list of words just for them, and there won't be any extra words that look like they fit based on their letters, but don't actually work. But now that I had this tool that I wanted, I started to look around, and I was wondering, what else could I do with all this data? Maybe there were other things that it could be used for. I'm in a lot of groups online for teachers and the science of reading, and there was a particular type of question that seemed to come up a lot. There were always people who were trying to figure out how to map the grapheme-phoneme correspondences in various words. I was manually responding to a lot of these questions as they came up, but it was frustrating because I knew I already had all of these words they were looking for broken into their grapheme-phoneme correspondences in the spreadsheet that I had made for the word list builder. So what I needed to do was to give people an easy way to look up these words one at a time and let them see all the correspondences in those words. So we created the word mapper. We put this together in less than a week once I decided to do it because, again, the hard part was already done. All those words were already in the database. We just needed an interface to let people look them up. Let me switch to the real thing. So you type in a word up here at the top, and it will give you the graphemes and the phonemes below. So the word sheep has 5 letters, but only 3 sounds. And you can click on each of the phoneme buttons, and it will say its sound.
Sh, E.
Those are my daughter's voices. Again, you hear them in all the audio on here. They very kindly tolerated me setting them up with a microphone and giving them lists of sounds and words to read on several occasions. All right, let's try another one. Let's do the word earth. Now this one has 5 letters again, but only 2 sounds. So I've heard from teachers who will pull up the word mapper in class and go through spelling lists to see how the words are broken down with their students. All right. Another tool I wanted to show you is the word chain builder. We've got a couple other word chain tools, but this is my favorite. So let's see. Word chains are one of the best activities that you can do to help your students work on phonemic awareness. Although phonemic awareness can be practiced with just auditory-only activities, it works a lot better when you are doing your phonemic awareness with letters. So this tool is also built on the same grapheme phoneme database as the other tools. All right. So in word chains, what you do is you have your students spell a word with letter tiles or on a dry erase board, and then you have them change that starting word to a different word that is off by just one sound. This can mean adding a sound, taking a sound away, or swapping one out for another. The word chain builder generates lists of words that work for this activity. You pick out the letter sounds you're working on, and then it'll make you a custom list of words that change by a single sound at each step. You can see that the menu is pretty much the same as in the word list builder. We got basic consonants, short vowels, double consonants, consonant digraphs, long vowels with a few spellings for each, the other vowels, ow, oi, and and you can also switch to advanced mode if there's something you're looking for. Let's go back to basic. You can also pick the number of sounds that you want to show up in the chains. And I'll tell you that if you pick just 5 and 6 sound words, you're not going to come up with as much as if you have shorter words. It's a lot trickier to get things that are off by just one letter with those longer words. But it can be fun to try, especially if you have an older student. All right, so let's give this a try with the same letter sounds as our hypothetical student from before, with F-I-T-S-U-M. And let's add a couple others as though we're doing something new with them. All right, and you can click the Build Chain button at the top to randomly make a new one. So let's take a look at this chain. At the top, you have the letter tiles that each student will need. And if you need 2 of a letter, it'll show you need 2 of something. So this chain starts here with the word mud. So you start out by telling your students the word and having them repeat it back to you. And then you would break down the word into its sounds and slide down a letter tile for each sound in the word. Then you would give them the next word and you would ask them what the difference is. How are we going to change mud to sud? What's different? You talk them through figuring out, oh, I need to take out the and put in s. And you go on like that for the list. Like you can see going from sad to add. They're not swapping one out, they're taking one away. And from it to fit, they're putting one in. Now, if you don't like the list that you get here, you just click the button again and go till you get one you like. Now, sometimes the program will make a shorter list like this. This is something that happens because it's gotten to a word that it doesn't have anything else it can change to with the settings that are selected. It'll get stuck like this more often if you only have a few letters selected, or if you ask it to make longer words. So if you do get one that you like, you can click the copy button right here, and then you can paste it into a Word doc to save it. And that will also give you the list of letter tiles you need at the top. Now, these chains don't include nonsense words, but there are some uncommon words in here, so that sort of achieves the same thing if that's something you're looking for. All right. Another thing we're really proud of is our collection of free games for students. We've been able to use the same word database to make these so that these games have flexible settings. So the settings on almost all of these are customizable, allowing you to use them to supplement just about any curriculum. Let's take a look at this one right here. Sound It Out is a good game for students who are just getting started reading. You can notice here that as we add letters, it's going to change the number of possible words for the game. Now, there won't be as many possible words in the games as there would be in the word list builder, because in the games, a lot of them function by having the child select a picture for an answer. So these are just the words that have pictures to go with them. So there we go. We've got quite a few here. You can also pick the number of sounds, similar to the word chains. And you can also pick the number of pictures that they'll be selecting from. So example, if you do 6, it will look like this with 6 pictures. Let's make it a little easier for our student and just do 3. And then 9 would be the hardest if they need it to be more challenging. All right. What they'll do is they'll click on sound. You can see each letter lights up like that. And then you pick a picture that goes with it. Now, if they pick the wrong answer, it'll make a chime that's a little less happy sounding. It's a little bit of a sad chime, and it'll show them which the right one was.
What? Shh.
All right, most of the games have a really simple, clean layout like you see here, because I wanted to avoid any unnecessary elements that would distract attention or take time away from what was actually being learned. As Anita Archer says, cut the fluff and teach the stuff. But my husband, though, the video gamer, argued that we should make versions of some of the games that were a little more fun, a little more entertaining. So I agreed that would be okay, provided that we maintain a high rate of time on task. So take these 3 games here. They all work on the same skill. So like, here's the really clean version, letter sound matching. Pick the letter. Now this one does the same thing, Sound Blaster, but the little boys just love this one. Some little girls too. They want to do the one with the spaceship. So you use the arrow keys. It'll play the sound.
Ooh.
In the middle. Gotta go over here. And that'll keep going until you get a score of 20. And it'll ask if you want to play again or go back to the... All right. Let me show you one more. We have the spelling game. This one's also very clean, utilitarian looking. Oh, this one's an uncommon word, so they can listen to find out.
Amp.
Amp. You can click on the letters, or
Nap.
you can also slide them down. Now, if they get something incorrect, what they can do,
Sack.
spell sick instead for some reason. It'll show them which one's wrong, and they can go back and try and fix it. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot more games here, like the ones I showed you. These are customizable to let you focus on what your students need. This customization is driven by our database of words, which brings me back to other questions that we've been able to answer using this data. All right, there's another variety of questions that I frequently see teachers asking online that can be answered using our database. How many different ways are there to spell this sound? Or what are the most common ways to spell this sound? These are important things to consider when designing phonics lessons. It's good to have an idea of how many ways there are to spell a sound and which of those spellings are the most important so that they're worth teaching. With my data set, I was able to count up all the words for every single grapheme-phoneme correspondence. And if you're a word nerd or a data nerd like me, you are welcome to read through the whole analysis in my phoneme frequency tables, which can be found on the website under articles. But here's a little sample of what I found. All right. There's some sounds that only have a couple different ways to spell them, with l and p. It's just a matter of having the single letter or the double letter. Another easy one is oi. It only has two ways to spell it, O-Y or O-I. And here are the numbers of words for each. For both l and p, the single letter is more common. And with oi, these are both pretty even. So it's a good idea to teach them both at the same time when you're introducing that sound. At the other end of the spectrum, there's the sound which has a ton of different ways that it's spelled. So here is where you need to consider which spellings are the most common so you know which ones are the most important to teach. So these are the top 4 spellings of the sound For a student just starting out, I would probably just teach these and I wouldn't mess with most of the rest. And even within these top 4, the first spelling, ER, is way more common than the others. All right, getting into the weeds here. All right, counting the number of individual words that contain a particular correspondence gets us a lot of information. But there are some uncommon spellings in some common words. All right, the word they has the spelling EY for the A sound. Now, this is definitely not one of the top ways to spell the A sound. However, the word they comes up in almost anything you read. I realized it was possible that some of these frequencies that I was finding might look really different if you considered how common the words were that they were occurring in. So I decided the way to deal with this is I got a good frequency table and I got a count of the number of occurrences of every word in my database. And then I multiplied each grapheme-phoneme correspondence by the words that they were occurring in, and then multiply that by the frequency of every single word. And what that gets us is how common the words are if you are like reading through real text, which of the grapheme-phoneme correspondences for a particular sound you're more likely to actually come across. So let's look at a couple of examples that compare to the 2 types of frequencies. One that just counts the individual words and the other that is weighted based on how common those words are. All right. In this case, these 2 are pretty similar. These are the different ways to spell the sound k. On the left here are the counts of just the individual words. So And over on this side are the weighted frequencies. It's multiplied by how common each word is that it occurs in. Let's see. Now, in this case, there isn't a lot of difference between the normal frequencies and the weighted frequencies. The letter K gets bumped up a little bit, and this one gets bumped down a bit. Now, earlier in the talk, I only showed the top 4 ways to spell the sound K. You can see that some of these spellings are very rare. And when teaching students, don't mess with anything that only has a tiny little sliver of pie. If it comes up in their reading, you can tell them, like, oh yeah, that's just another way to spell K. And it's okay. Move on with your lives. And even with the top 4, the CH spelling is really only worth mentioning to students because it comes up in the word school, which they will encounter regularly. All right. With some of the sounds, there's a big difference for the frequencies depending on whether you're looking at how many individual words there are with a particular spelling versus how often you'll actually encounter that spelling in spelling of a sound in connected text. So if you look at the number of unique words with the sound as in book or hood, and the spelling these two are pretty even. They're the big players. And there are very few words that have the spelling O-U-L for But the words that have that spelling, could, should, and would, and couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, they're so common that they would make up a considerable slice of pie just on their own for when you are reading reading real text. They make up about a third. All right. So what is this for? Looking at the frequency data can be really helpful if you're preparing a word sort activity for your students. I love doing these with my students at school. They're a lot of fun. In this type of word sort, you focus on one sound that is spelled several different ways. In this example, we have the sound E. So you'd give your students a page with a list of words that contain your focus sounds spelled in various ways, but all mixed up. And you tell your students the possible spellings that they're going to see and have them write them on a sheet of paper or on a whiteboard. Then you'd have them sound out the first word on the list, E, he, and then you'd ask them where it goes on their chart, and they would write it under letter E. And then you go through the rest of the words, have them sound it out, and put them in the right spots. So this is a great way to give your students an overview of the different ways that a sound can be spelled. All right, you followed me down the rabbit hole this far, but we still haven't answered one of the original questions I had. Is there an ideal order for introducing letters and sounds? There are a number of factors to consider when deciding which order to use when teaching grapheme-phoneme correspondences. The first thing I would suggest thinking about is to make sure that you introduce at least one consonant and one short vowel, and that those 2 letters can be used to make a real word. There are several vowel consonant words to pick from that work well for this: in, it, on, at, if, up, us, am. Then be sure that the next letter you add allows you to make a new word when combined with the previous letters. Or better yet, just go ahead and introduce 3 or 4 letters in the very first lesson. This scares a lot of teachers, but I promise it's not too much for the very beginning, as long as you're teaching these letter sound correspondences in the context of real words. So get them sounding out real words right away. Have them spelling real words right away with the letter sounds you teach them. All right, next you want to space out letters that look similar. I'm sure you've all seen this. There's some letters that kids are likely to mix up with each other. The most common are B and D. So don't teach the letters B and D around the same time. They are so easily mixed up. So give the student time to get really familiar with one of them. Give them lots of time to practice the correct handwriting formation, get them used to seeing it in words that they're sounding out, and then later introduce the other one. All right, you also want to allow time in between introducing correspondences with sounds that are easily mixed up. The most commonly mixed up sounds have got to be the short vowels I and E. These are especially hard to distinguish when they're followed by any of the nasal consonants, n, or ng. For example, even literate adults can have a hard time distinguishing between the words pin and pen, or between the words him and hem. The sounds th and f are also hard to tell apart just listening to them, and so are m and n. There are others too. All right. It can be helpful to introduce letters in an order that helps with correct handwriting formation. So if a student can correctly write the letter C, this can help them to correctly write the letters that start with that same shape, A, D, O, G, Q. E includes the same shape, just an extra little line there, and even S and F start with that similar curve going back. So getting the muscle memory down for one of these can help with the others. And explicitly pointing out the similarities to your students can help them learn that they aren't starting from scratch when learning to write a new letter. All right, the letters in this group all start with a line going down, and then most of them have a bounce to change direction at the bottom there that turns into a bump or a circle. So again, getting the muscle memory down for one can help with the others. All right, speaking of handwriting, I think it's a good idea to teach the individual letters that are part of a digraph before you teach the digraph. So if you do the individual letters that are part of a digraph well before the digraphs, this lets you work on the handwriting for the letters one at a time before putting them together in a unit. Now, I don't think you need to necessarily wait until you've taught all the letters for the all the spellings for the single letters before you begin introducing any digraphs at all. For example, SH for the sound sh is more common than the letters Z, X, or J. And I think it's a good idea to get in the TH for the sound th early, since the words that, them, then, this, the are all really high frequency words. All right. There's also the argument that consonants with continuous sounds should be taught before consonants with stop sounds. All right, what this means, a continuous sound is one that you can hold out for a long time, such as m, s, or v. Stop sounds are the ones that can't be held out, like t, g, or p. And vowels are all continuous sounds. When teaching students to sound out words, it's been found that they'll have an easier time if you teach them to stretch out the sounds and not stop in between. For example, instead of teaching them to sound out the word fun as f, n, when they're sounding it out, they should not stop in between, just keep going. So fun, and just keep it going. So it makes it easier for them to hear it. So if you introduce the continuous sounds early, then sounding out words in that way is possible. When you sound out the words with the stop sounds, it's a lot harder to avoid stopping between the sounds, although they can go at the ends of the words a lot of time without causing too much trouble. And last but not least, you should pick the most useful graphemes to start out with that will allow students to read and spell the most words right away. Here's the order I found for the most common grapheme phoneme correspondences based on the number of individual words that they occur in. It's not the weighted frequencies, just individual words. Though I did limit this list to those basic consonant sounds, short vowels, and a few easy digraphs. If there were any oddballs that snuck in there, I didn't count them. All right, so what is the answer to this question that's been driving me all these years? What is the perfect, ideal order for introducing letter sound correspondences that exemplifies all the principles that I laid out? Okay, well, there isn't one. Sorry to disappoint everybody. I don't think that there is one perfect order to introduce letter sounds to students. I think there are a lot of good possibilities, and which one you prefer is going to be different depending on which of those many factors I mentioned that you want to prioritize. Now, just because there are lots of good possible orders for introducing letters doesn't mean that there aren't ways to screw this up. Bad orders are possible, and they do happen. So don't teach just consonants or just vowels first, because you won't be able to build any words. Don't start with the less used letters like J, X, K, or Z. Don't go in alphabetical order. Now, this isn't the worst possible order, but it's not great because you have B and D introduced right near each other, and super common letters like S and T are almost all the way at the end. And also, don't teach only 1 or 2 letter sounds a week. Please don't do that common kindergarten letter of the week thing where teachers start the first week teaching A and then the next week teaching B. Because assuming you started doing this at the beginning of the school year in late August, you wouldn't get through the whole alphabet until, I think, early March. So even kindergartners are capable of learning their letter sounds at a much faster pace than this. Again, provided that you're doing it in the context of real words that you have them spelling and reading right away. Now, this is something new. If you'd like to try out some possible progressions for teaching sounds, you can try this. We actually made this brand new tool just in the last month when I was preparing for this talk. The letter sequence graphs tool lets you try out different orders for introducing letter sounds. You just click on the letters in the order that you think it should be introduced. Like you can see in this one with little numbers, I first for I, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the bottom of the page, it'll make a graph showing how many words you can make with those letters. The blue line here shows you the total number of words that can be made, and the green bars show you the new words introduced at each step. And at the bottom, it lists all the possible words that you can make with each new thing you've added. And you can click in the real version of the website. You can click around and see all the words added at each new step. All right, so I'd love you to give this a try. And who knows, maybe you will find that there is a perfect order to introduce the letters. And if you do, make sure you send it to us and prove me wrong. Here's our website and my email. Please feel free to send any questions or comments you might have. Let us know if there's a word that's not in the database that you think we should add. And if you want more details about how to use any of our tools, please feel free to contact us. And that's all I have for today. Thank you to everyone for listening to my presentation, and thank you again to LearnUp Centers for hosting this. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much. We want to give the opportunity for anyone who has any questions to put them in the chat. I'm not seeing too many right now, but I am seeing a lot of appreciation for all of the great resources you just shared. So thank you so much.
I do have a question.
Great.
I'm not able to see your the website and so there's something else. Oh, uh the it was HTTPS phonics something, and I didn't get the rest because it was covered by all the people
Oh,
on the right. So
the website, right, if you do a Google search for phonics and stuff, you should get it.
okay.
And it's also listed right here, phonics and with and spelled out stuff.com.
Okay.
So
Okay.
And we added that link in the chat for accessibility as well.
Thank you. This is
Yes.
amazing. This is
thank
amazing.
you.
Very creative.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they want clarification on?
Can I add something?
Great. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Emily.
Hey, Julia. If you were an OG person, and you know how you had to do a like a vowel drill where you're doing that sort of thing, this was just so much better, and it's so easy to customize things when you have that struggling student and you want to just like, I just want to focus on two sounds, the E and the I. And you can pick just those and just get those. And it's so beautiful. So anytime you want to really differentiate, this just made it so easy. It was wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's actually the Orton-Gillingham vowel intensive is kind of where I got the idea for the one game where you're just putting in the short vowels. It's a very
Yeah.
simple game. It has the consonants, and all you're putting is the short vowel. So I'll have students pick just I and eh
And that's it.
and one or the other.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
I did have a question. So at LearnUp, something that we've been working on this year is a program for English language learners or multilingual language students.
Mhm.
So I was wondering if you had any thoughts or findings during your analysis of the 30,000 words on um, what are some particularly helpful and useful ways to teach reading to English language learners? If any insights came through this process, that would be really great.
Oh, let's think. Well, I really like because I a lot of my students are English language learners, and so anything with the pictures can be helpful because then we're talking about the vocabulary. If they don't know what one of the words means, we've got the picture right there. Uh, and oh, one of the things I was mentioning about like mixing up the consonant, mixing up the sounds. The th sound is really tricky for my kids who come in with Spanish as their first language. So we talk about, okay, no, this one is kind of bite your lips, and this one stick out your tongue a teeny tiny bit. So we'll do words, we'll switch those out. Sometimes I'll put those two in chains and take out, make fat, then make that, um, things like that. And one thing I'd like to do more of eventually, I didn't talk about any of my morphology stuff because that'd be a whole other hour worth of talking. Um, been looking for those cognates with the we have a lot of words with Latin roots in English, and the kids who come in speaking Spanish, those they just sound really familiar to them, and so using that to bootstrap some of those morphology skills up is a fun thing to do with them.
Yeah, and what I love about your tools is that they are so customizable. So when we have a student who, is particularly struggling with certain sounds, then we can use that to work with them. Great. I see we have a couple other questions. Why don't we do Brenda, who has raised their hand, and then we'll go through the ones in the chat.
Hi, Julie. I had a question. Would your program be also recommended for parents who have struggling readers to
Oh
help
yeah,
guide the kids, not just for educators?
definitely. I like some of these things I use with my own kids when they were little. Like the games, these are the games I wish I had for my kids when I was homeschooling them. Uh, so they could just be working at it on their own because it's really nice. Some of the things are really better when they're done with a tutor in person because my game can't hear what words the student is reading. They can't hear the student look at the letter and say the sound, but it does allow them to just practice on their own, and freeing up a parent or teacher's time. They can just be independent and stick with it as long as they like.
Oh, okay, wonderful. And I also heard you mention about morphology. Do you have anything on that as separate that can help? Because my daughter's had phonics exposure in the past and she's still struggling. I'm wondering if that might be the missing piece that can help her have more visuals because she's a visual learner.
Oh, for sure. I can jump over to, let's see, am I still screen sharing? Let's see. Um, we've got my morpheme mapper, which is a lot of fun. You can put in like do the word jump, and you can see all the words that are related to it.
Oh yeah.
Which is really nice for spelling because and for vocabulary learning because if the kid knows jump, just if they can spell that one, it's like okay, now it's that plus just an extra little bit, or if and again also for vocabulary learning, if they have part of the word. Trying to think what I was doing with my students today. Spell it right. I was doing this with some sixth graders today. The word astronomer. It's all these words related to the word star. And if you know the meanings of the parts, then you can infer the meanings of the whole words by kind of putting them together. And knowing that when you're spelling a word that's longer like this, as long as you know this base, that sometimes it's, it's aster, sometimes with the E dropped, and then just stick a prefix on it. So you don't have to learn each word as a whole separate thing. You can see, oh, I know this part and I know this part. I just put them together.
Yeah, so because she's done several programs that were phonics heavy, I had went to a dyslexic therapist and they said that she recommended doing something that's like structure word inquiry because she said if you dyslexia is not just phonics, that it doesn't just target, but there's the full missing piece. If you can read but can't spell, then you're only half literate. So like that also helps with the, like it's a morphology and etymology is what I was told. I never heard those two phrases before that. So now I'm looking at programs that offer that. So I say maybe that's the missing piece that can help her.
Yeah, that could be. I as soon as, even with some of my younger, more beginning phonics students, uh, as soon as they can spell, four sound words, I'm going to start doing some suffixes with them, like the one I was looking at before with jump. I've got some second graders who are about on this level. It's like, okay, you've written the word jump, now add jumping. And so, and not waiting until they're older and ready for those ones with the Latin and Greek roots. This can, get into morphology pretty early, as soon as they
Okay.
can do those basic short words.
Thank you for all your advice. And I really like that you used your children's voice. I feel like it's relatable for the kids and it's really cute.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
what I was hoping for, to have kid voices in there. It
Yeah.
is one of my daughters, when I was having her record some of the early ones, she did a few takes and was like, okay, that's good. Now can you say the words like you don't hate everything you've been saying? Because she was doing like cat, dog. I was like, okay, let's try that again.
That's funny. Thank you so much for your program. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Bye-bye.
All right, I believe we have two questions here in the chat. So one is, how might you handle regional vowel pronunciations?
Oh, all right. Let me. Uh, you know what? With a lot of those, I've realized there's a lot of variation in the way people say these, and like one of the words, I did my letters training last year and the year before. And one of the letters trainers, when we were talking about morphology and root words, she kept saying root, word root. And I was like, I didn't know anybody said it like that. I guess I'll add that one in. So there's a couple options. So it's in there twice. We have root, the way I say it in my, Kansas City, NPR heavy upbringing, and then root for wherever that particular letters trainer was from. So
So some are edited. Thank you.
yeah, I'm not going to have uh, everybody's accent in there. So sorry.
That's a challenge to add. All right, so we have one more question here. Would this be effective to use with those who speak English, even as a second language, even as adults?
Can you say that one more?
Asking if this program would be supportive for people who speak English as a second language and now are adults.
Possibly. I heard from a middle school teacher who teaches English as a second language somewhere, not in America, in a different country. And they said that they were using a lot of the games uh, to practice with. So it's not quite adults, but with older students. Uh, and I know there's older students who play the grammar game. It uses the Montessori symbols, but it's still playable even if you don't know those. I would hope so, but I haven't heard as much from people working with adult learners.
Good to know. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up here today?
I do. I was about to write it in the chat. I couldn't do it fast enough.
No worries.
Um, uh, I have a private practice, and a lot of what I do is accent modification and work a lot on a lot of the vowels and a lot of these sounds. Would
Mhm.
this be possible to use this with adults in that situation as well, or would that apply?
Uh, I suppose so. The only thing that might be off-putting is that I do have kids saying the words and the sounds, so but I try to keep it a lot of the games not too babyish looking, keep them clean and simple, so lots of different age groups are working with them.
Okay.
Were you thinking of like using the games or using the tools? Uh,
Both.
both, yeah. I think a lot of the tools would be great to work with for adults. Uh,
Okay.
let's see. Oh,
That's great.
I've got a note from my tech support over here. He said to mention that the games work on mobile too, so you can be if you got your headphones, you can be playing it while you're out and about.
Oh, wow. Great.
The only one I've heard is that the Sound Blaster can be a little bit trickier on a touch screen because we've designed it to work with arrow keys. But we might see about tidying that up to make that easier on a touch screen in the future.
Awesome. That'd be a great opportunity for students to play the games, on their own time as well, which would be very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are reaching 7:05 here, so we are going to call it a day. Thank you so much, Julia, for sharing all of your resources. These are fantastic. We want our tutors to be using them, and we're excited to share them with everyone out here as well. So please reach out if you have any questions to Julia directly about phonics and stuff, or to us at LearnUp if you have any questions about our other events as well. And thank you all for coming.